Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The world is looking with hope at the global bright spot shining bright amidst the colossal ruins of the Western economic powerhouses, while Rahul Gandhi fails to find anything right with Modi's model. The numbers are speaking louder than words. The gross domestic product, the GDP figure released this evening for the last financial year, has not just surpassed all estimates at 7.2%, it also bears testimony to Modinomic success while the world struggles to get back on its feet. On the other hand, Mr. Rahul Gandhi is telling the world that India is not a fair place and that the leader of the country is busy prostrating to a scepter. Lying down and all that, he says, to distract from the pressing questions posed by unemployment, price rise and crumbling education system. Rahul Gandhi has been lauded by the echo chambers back home for exposing the alleged dark underbelly of Modi's India. However, the BJP has accused Rahul Gandhi of betraying India yet again at a global stage. The party says Rahul is mocking India's Sanatan traditions to gain acceptability in the West. It also alleged that Rahul Gandhi is discrediting India's secular ethos and its growth story for cheap political brownie points. The Saffron Party suggests Rahul's diatribe could be part of a greater anti-India conspiracy. Ladies and gentlemen, conspiracy or not, it, however, appears that the world today is less likely to buy into Rahul Gandhi's narrative of doom and gloom when who's who of the world leadership is acknowledging the India story under Prime Minister Modi. From Biden to Albanese, it's not just an endorsement of Modi's charisma but also his leadership and vision. Let's listen in to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who just the other day said that India's voice is being heard loud and clear at the global stage. Beating United Kingdom and reaching the level of fifth largest economy. We were at the 11th position and at the 5th position was UK. Today we've moved upwards and UK has fallen down. So it's a very big achievement for an emerging market economy. That story by itself is worth talking about, and we are still the fastest growing economy this year and for next year as well. Economists have also lauded India's growth figures. Listen in to what they have to say.
Now, this is much better than any expectation. And we should be happy that where most of the developed economies are reeling under the pressure and the fear of inflation looming large on them, some of them have already slipped into, some European economy have already slipped into recession. India is turning out to be an oasis of growth. Obviously, the talk around the world is of India and India's growth, and this proves one more thing that we are heading in the right direction.
Ladies and gentlemen, even as India's growth story is today being hailed at the global stage, the likes of Rahul Gandhi continue to deride Bharat for their petty politics. Listen.
Parliament House. These are distractions. The real issues in India are unemployment, price rise, spread of anger and hatred, a crumbling education system, price of education, price of healthcare. These are the real issues. BJP can't really discuss them, so then they have to do the whole scepter thing, lying down and doing all that. So. Aren't you happy I'm not lying down?
Lying down and all that, to an Indian tradition, all of us do. Charan Sparsh, bending down and all that. The Prime Minister today said that he is opposed politically because he has shaken up the status quo and unsettled the entrenched royalties. He said that the Congress cannot digest the fact that a poor man's son is rewriting the India story. Listen in.
भारत की उपलब्धियां भारत के लोगों की ये कामयाबी कुछ लोगों को पच नहीं रही है। 3 दिन पहले आपने ये देखा है, भारत को नया संसद भवन मिला है। आपका माथा ऊंचा हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? हमारे देश की शान बढ़ने का आपको आनंद हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? लेकिन कांग्रेस और इसके जैसे कुछ दलों ने इस पर भी राजनीति का कीचड़ उछाला। कई पीढ़ियों के जीवन में ऐसे अवसर एक बार ही आते हैं, लेकिन कांग्रेस ने भारत के गौरव के क्षण को भी अपने स्वार्थी विरोध की भेंट चढ़ा दिया। कांग्रेस ने 60,000 श्रमिकों के परिश्रम का, देश की भावना और आकांक्षाओं का अपमान किया है। 60,000 मजदूरों के पसीने को उन्होंने लात मारी है। उनको गुस्सा इस बात का है कि गरीब का बेटा इनके अहंकार से आगे आड़ा कैसे आ रहा है, अड़ा कैसे हुआ है।
It is in this backdrop that we ask the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. Is the India growth story exposing critics like Mr. Rahul Gandhi completely? That's the question, and that's the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining the debate tonight, Shehzad Poonawalla, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Mr. Suhel Seth, columnist, corporate honcho. Also joining me tonight, BK Basu, Chief Economist of ICICI Securities, ameeque Jamei, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Vivek Bansal, Senior Leader, Ashutosh, Senior Journalist. But my first question goes to Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst. Tehseen Poonawalla, not just raising doubts about India on foreign soil, which Mr. Gandhi always does, I just want to ask you, the kind of bloopers that were made today. Number one, Mr. Rahul Gandhi talks about the situation of Muslims in India, and he compares them to those of Dalits in UP in the 80s. Number one, in the 80s, can you remember who was ruling India and who was ruling UP? Do you think Mr. Rahul Gandhi has made a self-call? Because in the 80s, when there were the riots of Moradabad, 13th August 1980, 83 people, 83 Muslims died. Do you know who was ruling UP? Also 22nd May, it was Hashimpura massacre in 1987, 42 Muslims died. 23rd May, Maliana massacre, 72 Muslims died. Muzaffarnagar riots, 8th October 1988, 60 Muslims died. Badaयूं riots in 1989, 28 September, also 27 people dying. Do you know who was ruling Uttar Pradesh? Let me tell you. In Delhi, the governments between 1980 and 1990 were Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, and between 1980 and 89 there was VP Singh, Shripati Mishra, ND Tiwari and Veer Bahadur Singh, all Congress governments in Uttar Pradesh. Blooper number one. Then he says lying down and all that. Now, everybody in India do Charan Sparsh, they do Shashtang Pranam. Now, is he going to ridicule these abroad? Number three, at the event where he was to go, the national anthem was used for mic testing. Stopped in between because people were sitting, walking around, and then the excuse that came was they were just testing the mics. Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla, I want to ask you, look at India's growth story, look at India's position in the world, and Mr. Rahul Gandhi's complete lack of a reality check. What do you have to say?
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for having me on the show. As you said in your introduction that India has ended the financial year, the government data is projected at 7.2% GDP growth, which does make India one of the fastest growing economies in the world, a bright spot in the world. Congratulations. Except, ma'am, that at 7.2%, if the government says we've ended our GDP for the year, the first quarter of this GDP of this particular year, our GDP was at 13%, and the second quarter was 8.4%, which means our third and fourth quarter have come down to about 3%. That does not show an increasing GDP, that shows a falling GDP. There is a massive problem there, which somehow we don't want to address the elephant in the room. Secondly, and this is the more important point, that for the first time in our history, our annual manufacturing GVA growth, which is basically the backbone of our job creation, has fallen from 11.1% to just 1.3%. Manufacturing growth has fallen to 1.3%. And private consumption, that's fallen down to 2.8% at constant prices for quarter 4. If consumption is down, manufacturing is down, therefore our GDP is falling down. And that is a severe crisis. And to divert from all these crises, we have the government coming up with attacking Rahul Gandhi, who basically the government says all sorts of banal things about him, but comes out in full force to attack him. My question to the BJP spokesperson is simply this. Please tell us 3 things, and I'll end here. What is this government's plan for artificial intelligence, Web 3.0 for the future? Forget the past, talk about the future, the 80s, the 90s, talk about the future. How are you going to create jobs? Because unemployment is the highest in this country. Therefore, NCRB data says 1,65,000 fellow citizens of ours committed suicide, most of them for lack of job, for unemployment. Second point that I want to ask the BJP spokesperson. 2,25,000 of our fellow Indians gave up their citizenship, the highest ever. 10 lakh high net worth individuals left this country and went. Again, most of them because there is a problem in our economy. Why aren't you addressing it rather than attacking Mr. Gandhi? Except for the top 5, and I have nothing against the top 5. Corporates do a great job for our country. The per capita income of our country has decreased. When it increased by 145% when the UPA was per capita GDP was in power, it's only come down to, it's increased 49% in the last 9 years. Why hasn't the growth at par with our GDP grown per individual? Because the wealth is concentrated in the hands of the top 5, and there's nothing wrong. The top 5 are serving our country, but it's not percolating down. Therefore, you see these suicides, and this is government data. Can you answer these specific questions?
Mr. Poonawalla.
Well, first of all, there are 2 templates. So one where there is Bharat ki badat, and second where there is Bharat ki badnami. And guess which side the Congress is on. On the one hand, from Joe Biden to Prime Minister James to Prime Minister Albanese, whether it's the Morgan Stanley report, whether it's the GDP figures, all are giving a thumbs up to Badhta Bharat. But look at the kind of statements made by Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi says all the instruments of power are with the BJP RSS. Last 3-4 debates I've seen, Tehseen and all the Congress people say that Himachal jeete, Karnataka jeete. So is the fact true that all the instruments of power are with us? Then how you won the election? So first, Bharat ke loktantra ki badnami. Then Rahul Gandhi says that agencies are being used to target us. Supreme Court tak gaye the. And when Congress talks about Aam Aadmi Party leaders, that time they say the investigation is perfectly fine. That time it is fine, but on us it is not fine. That means Bharat ke court ki badnami. Then they say that Dalits in the 1980s, well, that's a good admission. It's not actually a blooper. Even a Band Ghadi shows the right time once in a day, so or twice in a day. So it has shown the right time in the case of 1980s. But look at the statement made. They say about Sikhs. Jagdish Tytler, the murderer of Sikhs, is in your party. Jagdish Tytler ke alawa Sajjan Kumar was defended by your party. In the 1980s, the biggest riots took place under your watch. Muzaffarpur, Maliana, Meerut, Hashimpura, Bhagalpur, all of these riots, Jalgaon, Mumbai, Delhi massacre, all of them took under your watch. What have you done on those riots? And then Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla, they do not stop at just that. In the attempt to do opposition of Modi, they do opposition of Bharatiya Sanskriti also, wherein the Dandavat Pranam, which is something that we do before our divine or before somebody we respect, is compared to lying down. Tehseen Poonawalla, lying down on a couch is equal to this kind of Dandavat Pranam, where all your organs are touching the ground, and it is the most Sarvashesh Pranam that you do for your God or for your parents. So this shows the hatred for Indian culture, and this is not new. Even the Sengal, which is part of Indian culture, Tamil culture, has been ridiculed by Rahul Gandhi, and the reason he's doing this is because in the last 9 years, economy has gone from 11th to 5th position. In the last 9 years, they created only 70 airports. In 70 years, we built another 70 airports. They used to build highways at 11 kilometers per day. We are building it at 37 kilometers per day. Today, the fact is that the highest FDI, the highest exports, the highest foreign exchange reserves, all are during this period of time. 12 crore farmers have got 2 lakh lakh crore as Kisan Samman Nidhi. How many Kisans have got their Kisan Karz Maafi in Rajasthan? Now he'll say we are starting it. 1500 rupees was supposed to be given to every woman in Himachal Pradesh. This was their promise. How many women have got it? 300 units were supposed to be given free in every household of Himachal. How many units have been given free? In fact, you have increased the price of electricity in Himachal. Therefore, to evade the questions on their broken promises, they start targeting Prime Minister Modi and they end up targeting Bharat. I just have one question. Today the national anthem was insulted, Bharatiya Sanskriti was insulted, Bharatiya Loktantra was insulted and undermined, and today's Bharat growth story has been insulted. Tehseen Poonawalla, what agenda you have against Bharat? You can oppose Modi ji.
Okay, Tehseen, respond.
One line.
30 seconds.
I gave facts and figures. Not one answer could the BJP spokesperson give, but since he spoke about investment, let me expose them again. The highest GDP, the highest investment to GDP was 35.8% under the tenure of the greatest Prime Minister of this country, Dr. Manmohan Singh ji. It has fallen today.
What was the inflation rate during the greatest Prime Minister's tenure?
Sir, don't interrupt me.
Arey, inflation bhi batao greatest Prime Minister ka.
29%. Sir, you said about, sir, please interrupt me.
You, Tehseen Poonawalla, you are the master in the art of cherry picking facts and then giving them a spin as per your convenience.
I'm going to end my.
Tehseen Poonawalla, you can stop throwing tantrums and answer the question. What was the average inflation rate? 10%.
I'm requesting you.
Okay, allow him.
How much will I allow him to speak?
You had one sentence to say.
I had one sentence. I wanted to add one more. He interrupted.
Okay,
so
one sentence.
The investment to GDP ratio is not just fallen. Let me give you one more thing. Since he said that India's rating has gone up globally, India's passport in India on the passport index was 76 when the greatest Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh left office. It's fallen down to 144 today. So please do not mislead viewers.
Just one line. Tehseen Poonawalla, just tell me how many houses for the poor did you all build in UPA 10 years and how many houses have been built today? Mr. Facts and figures, please tell. 25 lakh and today 3.5 crores. Chalo, the debate ends here. Thank you very much.
Suhel Seth, 1 minute now. Tehseen Poonawalla, calm down.
Chaliye.
Suhel Seth.
It's very unfair.
Suhel Seth, the question here is not just about is every problem of India being solved. Certainly not. We are a country of 140 crore people. Every problem, every last problem of every last man standing in India is not going to be solved at any time soon. But the question is, are we better off today than we were 10 years ago? Number one. And number two, is there reason for a very leading opposition leader to go abroad and paint a picture of India that may not entirely be true? In fact, it's rather condescending in the manner in which he has presented the facts. Would you agree with that, and why?
So now I don't want to be interrupted, by any one of these people. Rahul Gandhi's name should be changed to Reluctant Gandhi. He's reluctantly intelligent. He's a reluctant Hindu when it suits his purpose. He's a Janau-bearing Hindu. He's a reluctant politician of India, and I will say this with deep conviction and a lot of anguish, that his utterances don't behove someone whose family was involved in the independence movement of our country. When you go abroad, you stand united. When L.K. Advani was in the opposition and he was asked in the United Nations by people from the IFS that would you like to actually air your views, he says, मैं अपने विचार अपने देश के बारे में अपने देश में दूंगा. यहाँ मैं वही कहूंगा जो भारत को अच्छा दिखाए, means it puts it in good light. What is problematic to me, Navika, is something even more serious. Rahul Gandhi has lost office because he's a disqualified member. He has lost power because their sense of entitlement is not in sync with New India. And his visceral hatred for Narendra Modi, sadly, is now transferring itself to a visceral hatred for India and everything Indian. That is dangerous. Because what you're seeing now is someone who makes it a point to belittle his own country, to propagate debased depravity of the kind that I've never seen before, and is a shame to not only India's political system, but to his own illustrious family, if you can call them illustrious. I would certainly say Jawaharlal Nehru was illustrious and will remain so in my book. When you go abroad, is this your only narrative? Is your narrative to shame our religions, our customs, our traditions, to knock at the temple of democracy, to say, oh, that these people build parliament, but they're ignoring education, they're ignoring healthcare? This man has the gumption to talk about the 1980s when the Nelly massacre happened under the Congress watch. When on October 31, there was a massacre of Sikhs, more than 3,300 people died, Sikhs. When his grandmother launched Operation Blue Star and actually went into the Darbar Sahib. These people are talking about the India which they don't like today. What did they do to the people? I'm not even getting to a debate with Tehseen and Shehzad because their facts are always on top. So I'm not going to get into how many airports, how many this. I can tell you I travel more than anyone on this panel. The position of India in terms of the pride that the Indian diaspora has in India, the confidence with which the Indian today travels, the way businesses have spawned, the way we are giving the world unicorn after unicorn, the way we are telling the world about digitization, the fact that today a Ramesh can actually sell you tender coconut through digitization. Let's be proud. You cannot decry every achievement of 1.4 billion people because you hate one man. Don't let hatred consume you. Let positivity consume you. Is there nothing right that Narendra Modi has done? Do you not want to compliment him for the Ujjwala scheme? Do you not want to compliment him for digitization? Do you not want to compliment him for doing what no country did during COVID? My point is, and Navika, you know this, I don't care about any goddamn political party. But give the devil his due. Cut people slack. Give credit where credit needs to be given. Today, we are a prouder country than we've ever been before. Have you forgotten, Navika, towards 2012, 2013, what happened with the telecom scandal? You haven't forgotten because you were part of breaking that news. Today, we stand more confident. Is it Narendra Modi's business to go to Khan Market to buy an opposition? If these Johnnies can't come together? On May 28, it was not a moment of Modi. It was a national moment. It was a moment of national pride. We were moving from a colonial building which was meant for earls and lords and moving to a building meant for Naya Bharat. Are we ashamed of that? You make fun of the spectre. You make fun of traditions. You make fun of Narendra Modi lying down prostrate, which we all do. I mean, my parents have passed, but I used to do that. How much are you going to mock your own country? How much are you going to mock your own citizens? And then you think you will ever come to power? Will you ever come to power by saying, जो आप प्रणाम करते हो वो गलत है? जिस भगवान को आप worship करते हो वो गलत है? Because he's in America, he's talking like an absolutely errant, irresponsible politician, which sadly, as I said, is not something I had expected. You know, I've always said he's intellectually innocent, but today I have to say that innocence is now bordering on the devious. It's bordering on a narrative that will destroy him. You know, you can't progress when you yourself are consumed by hatred, Navika. Progress emerges from affection, from positivity, and from unity. It doesn't emerge from isolation, arrogance, and anger. That's what sadly Rahul Gandhi has become. He embarked on Bharat Jodo. Today, you're trying to break the Bharatiyata everywhere you go, and that's a sad thing.
Well, let me get in Mr. Ameeque Jamei. Let's get into the facts, Mr. Ameeque Jamei. Have you forgotten the 1980s decade that Mr. Rahul Gandhi spoke about? Are Muslims worse off today in India? Are they like the Dalits in UP in the 80s? I want to ask you also the question on the growth story. The growth story, 7.2% India grows at, which is way above any of the Western countries, which is way above any of our neighboring countries, and which shows that this growth will be transferred to the people of India. Will it choose only the Hindus and not choose the Sikhs, the Jains, the Buddhists and the Muslims? When any scheme is given, is the religion of the person asked? So why is this narrative that is being made? about the government and about India at this moment, why is it being made just for the narrow purpose of some vote banks?
नाविका मैं तो सबसे पहले सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहता हूं कि तुम आसमां की बुलंदियों से जल्द लौट आना, हमें जमीन के मसाइल पे बात करनी है। कोई सिडनी से राष्ट्र के नाम संदेश दे रहा है, कोई लंदन से राष्ट्र के नाम से संदेश दे रहा है, और ये जो आप आंकड़े बता रहे हैं, ये आंकड़े हर 6 महीने 1 साल पे आप रिलीज करते हैं। इन आंकड़ों की सच्चाई अदम गोडवी ने कहा था, तुम्हारी फाइलों में गांव का मौसम गुलाबी है, ये आंकड़े झूठे हैं, ये दावा किताबी हैं। आप उत्तर प्रदेश में आ जाइए नाविका मैम, आप चलिए कानपुर में, हजारों हजार जो एमएसएमईज थे वो बंद हो गए। वाराणसी में जो पूरा ये हैंडलूम का पूरा वहां से लेके जो फैजाबाद तक का सेक्टर आप चले जाएं, हैंडलूम इंडस्ट्री पूरी कोलैप्स कर गई। आप चले जाइए मेरठ में, आप अलीगढ़ चले जाएं, आप कानपुर, आप सोचिए ज़ारा दुनिया का मल्टीनेशनल ब्रांड है, वो कानपुर में बन रहा है और 15 दिन फैक्ट्रियां चल रही हैं पिछले 4 सालों में। सरकार ने आज तक नहीं बताया कि एमएसएमई जो उत्तर प्रदेश में क्लोज हुआ, कितने नए रोजगार के अवसर खुले। आज सबसे बड़ा विषय जिस वजह से नरेंद्र मोदी पूरे अपने देश में भारतीय जनता पार्टी क्रेडिबिलिटी खो रही है, वो है अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट और झूठे वादे। आप याद करिए, निर्मला सीतारमण साहिबा ने, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने हमारी क्या बोला भारत की संसद में कि 2 करोड़ का जो आंकड़ा था, जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने बोला था, हम 50 लाख नौकरी दे पाए। सवाल यह है कि आपने जॉब क्रिएशन में आपने कुछ नहीं किया। आपने कहा राम राज लाएंगे, लेकिन आप तो कॉर्पोरेट राज ले आए। इस देश के 60% वेल्थ पे इस देश के 2% पूंजीपतियों का कब्जा। हम पूंजीपतियों के खिलाफ नहीं है, लेकिन जो इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट है भारत के लोगों का, आज जिस तरह से चरम की महंगाई, महिलाएं सोचिए कि जो घर का बोझ उनके ऊपर होता है, किचन में वो जानती हैं कि 4,000 से 6,000 रुपए का उनके ऊपर बोझ है। तनख्वाहें नहीं बढ़ रही हैं, जो रिटायर्ड हो रहे हैं पेंशन का कोई इंतजाम है नहीं, जॉब का गारंटी का प्रोग्राम कोई है नहीं। मैं उत्तर प्रदेश नाविका मैम, मैं पूर्वांचल में घूमकर आया। आप सोचिए कि नारेगा के वर्कर्स, जो सबसे हाशिए पर जॉब गारंटी का कार्यक्रम है भारत के सरकार का, 6 महीने से 1 साल तक उनकी तनख्वाहें, चाहे योगी आदित्यनाथ की रिजीम हो, चाहे वो केंद्र सरकार की, तनख्वाहें नहीं आ रही उनकी। माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी ने 12-17 की सरकार में जो जॉब क्रिएशन किए, जो टीचर्स के थे, गांव गांव में हमने कंप्यूटर सेंटर खोले। आज तक टीचर्स की जो जब भी उनकी भर्तियां होती हैं, हर साल पर्चे लीक होते हैं। तो सवाल यह कि जो एक ग्रामीण भारत है, चाहे उत्तर प्रदेश हो या भारत के लोग हो, किसानी टूट रही है, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का जो डिस्पैरिटी जो भारत में बढ़ी है, उसके लिए अकेला कोई शख्स जिम्मेदार है तो नरेंद्र मोदी और भारतीय जनता पार्टी की जो कॉर्पोरेट प्रेस नीतियां थी। राहुल गांधी जी की पार्टी, तो इनका इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी में क्या फर्क है नाविका मैम जी? मुझे तो आज तक कुछ समझ में नहीं आया कि राहुल गांधी जी में
समझ नहीं आया अमीक जमाई जी, इसीलिए तो 2017 में भी चुनाव आप हार गए, 2022 में भी आप हार गए। समझ ही तो नहीं आ रहा आपको कि जो आप कह रहे हैं और जो लोग चाह रहे हैं उसमें कितना फर्क है। लेकिन शहजाद पूनावाला कई सवाल पूछे हैं, जवाब
जमीन के मसाइलों की बात की गई है। नाविका जी, मुझे लगता है कि
अमीक जमाई जी आपने सवाल पूछे, जवाब सुन लीजिए, जवाब सुन लीजिए, उसके बाद आपको मैं टिप्पणी का समय दूंगी।
नाविका जी, मुझे लगता है कि ये जनता को सवाल का जवाब सुनना बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, इसलिए मैं चाहूंगा कि डिस्टर्बेंस ना हो, क्रॉस टॉक ना हो।
अमीक जमाई जी, डिसिप्लिन ऑफ द डिबेट। अमीक जमाई जी, डिसिप्लिन ऑफ द डिबेट। आपने सवाल पूछे, सवालों का जवाब सुन लीजिए, आती हूँ आपके पास। अमीक जमाई
जो मुख्यमंत्री बन गए, जो प्रधानमंत्री बन गए,
खामखा वेस्ट ऑफ टाइम,
तो यही लोग थे।
ठीक है,
कांग्रेस के रूप
ऑल राइट,
ऑल राइट, पार्टी के लोग थे जिन्हें शहजाद पूनावाला पूछते हैं।
ओके,
कैन वी हैव अ टाइम नाउ? नाविका जी, अब मैं आंकड़े के साथ आपको सारी चीजें बताऊंगा। जब 2017 में सरकार छोड़कर गए अखिलेश यादव, 18% अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट। आज अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट उत्तर प्रदेश में 3.5%। जो 2 करोड़ नौकरियों की बात हो रही है, जॉब्स की बात हो रही है, ईपीएफओ का डेटा 5.28 करोड़ न्यू सब्सक्राइबर्स, उसमें से 23 लाख जॉब स्टार्टअप्स में। नाविका, आई request you, Navika, I request you and your PCR, do not interrupt me. I am giving facts and figures. I am quoting facts and figures. This is unfair by the PCR also.
All right. No, the PCR cannot take a call unless I tell them to. So please, you'll have to bear with me. Ameeque Jamei ji, I'm lowering everybody's faders except Shehzad. Listen to the answer and then interrupt. Yes.
Jobs created. EPFO data over the last few years, 5.28 crore new subscribers added. This means that people who did not have jobs at all till now, 23 lakh jobs created in startups, because startups went from 700 to 87,000. 35 crore mudra loans were given. Let's assume one for every 3 loans that were given, one job created. 1.1 lakh man days of jobs created because the highway construction was almost tripled. Between 2014 to 22, 7.22 lakh people got government jobs, in which 3.5 lakhs was given in railways. So now 10 more lakh jobs have been announced by the Prime Minister, which is being given in 70,000 bracket. MSME, the portal 2014 showed 52 lakh jobs. Today, 2022, the jobs have reached 94 lakhs now. Let's come to poverty. Poverty pay, the poverty rate declined in the UPA period at 8.1%. Today, it is declining at 12%. The highest poverty rate was kept below 1% because of the 80 crore people getting free rations. Agriculture, the budget left by the Congress was 1.46 lakh crore. Today, it is 6 lakh crore. Congress gave MSP of 3.5 lakh crores in 5 years on wheat and rice. We have given 10.5 lakh crores. Mehengai, Congress gave average inflation of 10%. Today, it's 4.5%.
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. So let me ask Ashutosh ji. Ashutosh ji, the question today is, as I started this, is everything bad in India? How do you comment? And obviously we can't expect 100% every problem solved. But is everything so bad as Mr. Rahul Gandhi points out?
Was everything bad between 2004 and 2014? Did anybody say that? I think what narrative has been created by so many people that India was born in 2014 and nothing before that nothing has happened, surprisingly. So I think let's not get into that. The fact of the matter is today that these girls, they are sitting on the dharna, and the kind of treatment is given to them. If that is a new India, that is a real India, then I have nothing to say about it. A man is roaming free here and there. Nobody is asking question to him. But FIR is lodged against these wrestlers. So is it the freedom? Is it the Indian tradition when we talked about yatra narayanstu pujyante tatta ramante devata? Is it tradition? If that is the tradition, then what the BJP is doing? What is the Prime Minister has to say on that? 7 women has accused this man who belongs to the BJP. His name is Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. And on the same day, when the new parliament is being inaugurated, they are treated so badly. And we feel very proud about our tradition. Is that a tradition? I want to ask that. About the economic front, I can understand that yes, India is the fastest growing economy. There's no doubt about it. But what about the jobs? Has anybody asked the question? 2016-17, 51.3 million people were into the manufacturing sector. Today in 2023, 35.6 million. 15 million people have left job in manufacturing sector. Is anybody asking question about that? Nobody is asking question about that. We are very proud about the currency GDP rates. We are very proud about the black money digitization and all that. Have you checked the facts? The currency GDP ratio in 2014-15 is 11.6%. Despite all the promises about the digitization, it has gone up to 13.7%. What happened to that digitization? Forget about that. Let's take the NREG. NREG in 2014-15, 4.4 crore. Today in 2020-23, it is 6.19 crores. That means there is a serious joblessness and there is a serious distress, not only in the urban India but also in the rural India. And let's compare the data about 2004 and 2004 to 2014. The GDP grew by 145%. GDP grew by in 2004 to 2023 almost 70%. So let's not say that everything has happened in India after 2014 and nothing happened before 2004. I think the people are being too partisan. People are rubbishing everything. The way Jawaharlal Nehru is rubbished by the BJP on a daily basis, that shows how much respect we have for our tradition, for our elders, for our forefathers.
No, so Ashutosh ji, do you condone the words of Mr. Rahul Gandhi who said lying down and all that? Do you condone it?
No. Are you going to condone what Mr. Narendra Modi has said in Korea? Are you going to condone that?
No, I'm the anchor asking you the question. You're the panelist. You're the panelist. And Korea happened, about 7 years ago. I'm talking about today.
The Korea happened when Mr. Narendra Modi was the Prime Minister.
No, what was the statement in Korea?
2014, people used to bother, you used to feel ashamed. Can you expect any Prime Minister talking such rubbish?
No. Okay, Suhel Seth wants to come in. Suhel Seth wants to come in. Yes, Suhel Seth.
Ashutosh, 1 minute. Ashutosh is absolutely right. Ashutosh is absolutely right. No one has ever said no good happened before 2014. That is not the argument. Let's not confuse analogies. No one is saying that Narendra Modi has done everything right. The argument here, Ashutosh, is very simple. When a country makes the kind of progress that India has made, socio-culturally, economically, do you expect a political leader of the stature from a family which has ruled this country for many, many years to go and actually abuse his own country, abuse the country's traditions, abuse whatever the country does because he can see no good in Narendra Modi? My premise earlier, Ashutosh, in my opening remarks was his visceral hatred for Narendra Modi has now translated willy-nilly. He may not believe it, willy-nilly into a hatred for everything that is Indian and uniquely Indian. One. Number two, Ashutosh, I belong to the corporate sector. By pitching the corporate sector out every day, no politician is doing anyone a great service. Because half these jokers can't give a job to people. When industry is growing, accept that with grace. Number three, in the good old days, if you remember, Times of India's matrimonial ads would want people with an IAS, IFS, doctor, lawyer background. Today, you have more entrepreneurs than India has ever seen. Give credit for that. I'm not saying give Narendra Modi credit, but give the Indian credit. Today, by negating everything, you're actually decrying and depriving the average Indian of that credit. Why would you do that?
Exactly. Exactly. And I want to get in Mr. P.K. Basu. Mr. P.K. Basu, obviously everything is not hunky-dory and obviously everything is not as bad as Mr. Rahul Gandhi portrays it. The truth is somewhere in between. Where do you see this truth actually lie?
Well, the truth is in the numbers. You look at the fact that India's real GDP has grown 7.2% in the latest fiscal year, after having grown 9.1% in the previous fiscal year. That's one point. Now, the real point is that this is the 7th year out of the last 9 in which India was the fastest growing economy in the world. Among the G20, the 20 largest economies in the world, India has been the fastest growing only in 7 of the last 9 years, but also only in 7 of the last 76 years. These are the only 7 years in which India has been the fastest growing economy among the 20 largest economies in the world. These are facts. During the entire Manmohan Singh period, India was never the fastest growing economy in the world. Also, it's worth pointing out that Manmohan Singh, as Prime Minister, inherited a current account surplus of 2.4% of GDP. By the end of his first 5 years in office, India had moved to a current account deficit of 2.3% of GDP. During the last 9 years of the Narendra Modi government, the current account deficit has averaged just about 1% of GDP right through this period. So that is what economic stability is about. Now, if you look at the inflation record, this over the last 9 years, average CPI inflation in India has been 5%. In the previous 5 years of UPA 2, average inflation was 10.1%. So inflation has halved, growth has picked up, and during the COVID period, all over the world, fiscal deficits went through the roof. India's fiscal deficit was well contained. The public debt to GDP ratio hasn't risen significantly. Our external debt to GDP ratio is now 19%. It was 24% in 2014. So if you look at the macroeconomic record, the record of this government really is quite remarkable. So those are simply the facts. Now, if you come to other matters, if you look at other aspects of the economy, employment creation, the evidence is quite mixed, but there has been much better employment creation by this government, and in particular, the digital stack has unleashed an entrepreneurial revolution like nothing we've seen before.
Well,
if you look, the unicorns are not just unicorns that are emerging from urban India, they're emerging in rural India as well. If you look at the Mudra loans, this is a new concept where small micro loans being given to millions of beneficiaries across the country. In 2014, more than half of rural households had no access to a toilet at home or in school.
Absolutely.
Now all have some access at least
to a working toilet. If fact says such a comprehensive story of India, what will it take to convince, excuse me, what would it take to convince those who are on a permanent trip to somehow find fault with the India story? The question is, there are problems and there always will be, but are we looking at the problems and enlarging them and selling them to the world rather than the great India story? And why would anyone want to do that? That's the question people are asking. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. On the other side, ladies and gentlemen, the big wrestlers debate. The central